Thanks very much, Jenny, and thanks to the EPA for inviting me here today. What I was asked by the EPA was to talk about the Better Farm for Water campaign, which was just launched just over 12 months ago now. And the secondary they asked me was to focus on just one catchment and just look at within that one catchment how we're going to improve water quality. I'm very optimistic that this program can do what it is asked. I just want to develop that during my talk. So my talk is divided just into 4 sections. I want to outline the Better Farm for Water campaign, what it's about. Most people know at this stage. I just, within that Better Farm for Water campaign, we identified 8 river catchments, were prioritised initially as part of the programme because these were river catchments of concern identified by the EPA, and we're following through on that. And those 8 river catchments were Bandon, the Barrow, the Boyne, the Blackwater, the Lee, the Nord, the Slaney and the Suir. And as I said, I'm going to concentrate in at the end of my talk on just the Blackwater. And then, as part of that programme, we have 8 actions for change, and I just want to talk about those 8 actions for change. And I try to convince you that if these 8 actions for change are implemented, we can see improvements in water quality going forward. So the first thing is the outline the Better Farm for Water campaign. It's not a Teagasc campaign, it's an all-industry campaign. The Minister for asked us last year to take the lead on it. So it's really important that it's a multi-actor approach, that we bring everyone on board with us. So it's just not a Teagasc campaign, it's an all. And Nolene outlined that in her talk. So the 8 actions, and I'm going to go into a bit more detail, and a lot of discussion went about the 8 actions. 3 actions were related to nutrient management, 2 to farmyard management, and 3 to land management. The nutrient management was about reducing nitrogen surplus, ensuring good soil fertility, and the application of nutrients in the right place, at the right level, at the right time of the year. Around farm management, sufficient storage on livestock farms, and minimising nutrient loss from farmyards and roadways. In terms of land management, then it was fencing off all watercourses from animals, promoting targeted measures in terms of riparian margins and that, especially in context of phosphorus, to minimise loss. And the last one then was maintaining an overwinter cover, green cover, to reduce nutrient loss on tillage land. So I think we have identified what the really important ones are in those 8 actions. So the overview then, the programme, it's a stakeholder engagement, it's a multi-actor approach, it's building awareness is going to be really important, and that's where EPA come in, their data in terms of, and I'll show you some of the data as we go along. Upskilling farmers, research, advisors, all stakeholders in terms of how the importance of these 8 actions and how we implement them. Knowledge transfer, a good knowledge transfer programme, and a knowledge transfer, and Mary will be talking about that subsequent to my talk. But I mean, farmers need support in order to implement these changes, and a research programme to back it up. So. And again, I'll say is that these 8 actions are really important. The implementation of them is really important. And it's about changing practice at farm level. And that's what's really about. We know the science. We have to implement the practices. And that's going to be really important. And communication plan, of course, is really important. So, as I said, it's a collaboration approach, and that's really, really important. And again, Nolene was talking about the EIP program, the Better Farm for the Farming for Water EIP is going to be really important in terms of supporting the financial support to get some of these practices. The ASSAP program, it's there with I think about 8 years now. It's going to be. We have an Agriculture Catchment Programme. We have some supports in terms of acres. Within we have other, and again, Nolene talked about industry engagement. And we would see that in each of these 8 catchments that there will be a lead activation group within each catchment, and the lead has been taken in the Slaney by Dillon. So we see a local and really important. And I was in New Zealand over 12 months ago, and And again, it was mentioned this morning, is a catchment approach. We're going to focus on catchments. We're going to work with the people within the catchments. And as I show in context of the Blackwater, it's not all actions are important in all sub-catchments. So identifying the sub-catchments that are really critical for the different actions is going to be really part of the programme. So the eight river catchments and I've outlined them there, and they were selected based on the EPA classification of catchments of concern due to high nitrate concentration. And you can see that on the south, the southeast, and they're really associated also with in terms of free draining land. That is not to say that there will be some programs in the wider thing, but the initial focus is going to be on these eight catchments. So this is this is using EPI data and looking at the ecological status, where we stand from the last report, which was 2016 to 2021. We'll have a new EPA report in August, covering the years 22 to 24. But this is the level of high or good ecological status for the different catchments that I've done. And there is still big variation, even though that there's eight river catchments here. You can see that the highest level of high or good ecological water quality in terms of those catchments, it ranges from 67% down to 32% for the catchments. So the catchments are very different. And you can see that 4 of the catchments are over 60%. The average for the country, and as probably was outlined already, is 54%. So some of these are above the national average. Some are well below the national average. So, as I said, they're just the outline of the ecological status for those catchments in terms of high, good, moderate, poor, and bad water quality. And at the end, you see the proportion that says are high or good at the end of the slide. So just again, I should have acknowledged my co-authors in the front, because they did a lot of analysis for this paper. But they looked at the characteristics of the 8 river catchments. We looked at them in terms of cultivated area. That would be the level of cropping in those areas and of those individual catchments. And they range from 10% in the Blackwater up to 34% and almost 35% in the Slaney. You look at then in terms of organic loading, the proportion of those catchments that were greater, say, than 170. Again, you can see a big range again there. You get 7.7%. Up to 27 or almost 28%. And the final column shows the average nitrate concentration in those catchments using the EPA data for 2024. So you can see big ranges in the nitrate concentration. It's not all, and I'm not going to go into the thing, it's not all about organic end loading, it's also about land use and land use policy. So I'm going to develop that talk as I move through the Blackwater in terms of looking at separate sub-catchments within each of those. So the Blackwater catchment. So Blackwater catchment is about 330 square kilometres. There's, I think, about almost 160 water bodies in the catchment, and there's 28 sub-catchments. And this shows the trend in water quality over the reports from the EPA, going back to 2007 to 2009, up to the last report, which I showed you already, the summary of 2016 to 2001. The far side shows the proportion of high and good water quality. Back in 2007 to 2009, 86% based on the EPA data was either high or good, and the last report it was down to 66%. So, yes, there was a deterioration in quality. If you look at it from a positive point of view then, if you look at the proportions, and if you look at the proportion in 2016 to 2021, there was no river bodies bad. There was 4 river bodies, or proportion of 4 river bodies of poor quality. But 29% of those were of moderate. So I would be saying, yes, we had a deterioration in water quality, but very little of those water bodies are either poor or bad. So I think with good program in place, we can shift that back from the moderates back to the high and the good. And that's what I want to talk about as I move through the talk in terms of the Blackwater. So this is just a Blackwater, map of the Blackwater. Most of you are not familiar. The Blackwater rises somewhere between the Limerick, Kerry, Cork border in Slieve Rúchra. It flows through a lot of towns. It starts in Mill Street to Cantork. onto Mallow, to Fermoy, to Lismore, and it finishes in Youghal in terms of entering the sea. So it's a very, very substantial. What I've shown here is again the EPA data in the ecological status for each of the individual water bodies. You can see, yes, there are a couple of areas of poor water quality, especially in the Albeg area and also in terms of the Mitchelstown area. You also see in terms of moderate water quality, which is represented in yellow. Again, those areas, and again, they're scattered around the catchment. And some of those are associated with nitrogen level and some are associated with phosphorus level and other issues, of course, as well. So this, again, I'm using EPA data and looking at the nitrate concentration from the Blackwater from 2016 to 2024. And you can see the average nitrate concentration, somewhere around 3 milligrams of nitrate N per litre. You can see, and again, Nolene referred to it, there was a drop, a reduction in 2024. If we look at it then, look at the trend in it, and just drawn a trend graph in it, there has been no change over that period. If you look at it then in terms of the requirements and the statutory requirement for water moving from the rivers into the catchment is 2.6 milligrams of nitrate N per litre. And you can see that that's the estuary requirement and it's close to it. If you look at it in terms of good water quality, EPA have recommended that it should be 1.8 milligrams per litre. So it's not far off the targets. We've seen the reduction, and again, Nolene highlighted we need to see a continuing reduction in nitrates because nitrates is the issue here. And if we look at it then in terms of the catchment, and you look at it in the pollution impact potential map for nitrate losses in the catchment, you can see that it's really in the eastern part of the catchment that nitrate is an issue. If you look at the western part of the catchment, nitrate is not an issue. So it's associated with, again, as you know, it's associated with the free drinking size. And the risk factors have gone from 1 down to 7, which is no risk, and 1 being the highest risk. So you can see we can focus in as to where the issues are in terms of nitrates in the catchment. If you look from a phosphorus point of view, this is the average phosphorus. And again, I'm using the Lismore monitoring station because that is the nearest to the estuary and it's really the accumulation of all the impact of the Blackwater in that area. If you look from a phosphorus point of view, phosphorus has reduced. If you look at it, the requirements, the trend has been reducing. If you look at it for good water quality, it's 0.36 milligrams per litre, I think it is, or 36. 0.36. You can see it's below that, and it's almost there in terms of good water quality, which is 0.26. So from a phosphorus point of view, the story is good, but that's not saying that phosphorus is not an issue somewhere back in the catchment, especially in the heavier soils and that in the area. But this is as good summary as you can have for it. And if you look at the phosphorus, the story is totally different then. You could look at the pollution impact map, shows really it's in the western area that phosphorus is an issue. And some of these areas, some of these water bodies have a requirement based on the Water Framework Directive to have high, not alone good, but high water quality. So phosphorus is an issue in that area. So I wanted to just look at then, if you were developing an action program for the Blackwater, in terms of, say, first of all, instead of cover crops, and we looked at it within the subcatchments. So there's 28 subcatchments there, and the level of cultivated area goes from greater than 30%, which is the dark green, down to less than 5%. So you can see that there's a number of subcatchments there that you would target in terms of cover crops. And there are really 2 bunches from the Castletown Roach area and down in the Tallow region. So what we would do then in terms of our focus of our programme is that we would focus really this autumn is growing cover crops in those areas. If you look at it in terms of organic N loading, again, and you want to reduce organic N loading, again, you can see it broke down from less than 70 kilos of organic N per hectare up to greater than 130. Again, you can see certain subcatchments in the area, really important that we focus on in terms. One is there is the function, and I know LawPro are in already with a pilot program in the function area. But again, it just shows us where we need to focus on what areas, what subcatchment we need to, and where we need to work on. So if you go back into the implementation of the 8 actions, and the other issue that again the Elodie Roel looked at, the average organic N surplus, the nitrogen leach in kgs per hectare over the period 2016 to 2023, and that's what we showed in terms of water quality. And you can see it follows very closely in terms of the water quality if we look at from 2022 to 2023, and this is based on the National Farm Survey data, using the nitrogen, using the animal production, using the concentrate, using all inputs in the system and modeled through the system. And you can see that it has reduced in recent years, the nitrogen leached on average on dairy farms, and that is nationally, that's just not for the Blackwater catchment. So if you look at the key actions then, what are the actions then that we need to do in terms of improved nutrient management? We have developed this AgNav decision support tool, which can measure nitrogen surplus. So we can measure nitrogen surplus now on all farms with this AgNav. And we have been working very closely with Dairy Gold farms, and there's over 1,000 farms gone through the system. So we can look at nitrogen surplus to reduce farm nitrogen balance. Reduce reliance on chemical nitrogen with greater use of organic manures is again very much part of our programme. Improving soil pH to increase nutrient use efficiency and pH availability. We have shown that increasing pH to optimal level, it will substitute for about 75 kilos of nitrogen. It will also make more pH available. And use pasture-based industry grassland management system that we have to improve nutrient efficiency. So they are the type of actions that we put in place in order to follow through in terms of nutrient management. If you look at the farmyard management, we carried out a survey over 100 farms, dairy farms over the last 2 years, and the required, based on historical data, the required slurry storage on those farms is 0.33 cubic meters of slurry per week. We have found now that it's actually, with the increased production and the type of animal we have, there's a requirement of 0.41 cubic meters per week. So this equates to an increasing requirement of about 20% of slurry storage in the average dairy farm. And what will that give us? It will give us increased slurry storage, but it will also maximise the fertiliser replacement value of P and K on farms. It will reduce nutrient loss to water because we can apply the slurry when we want it applied. And it will reduce nitrogen surplus on farm by replacing organic manures with chemical fertiliser. In terms of farmyard management, point source pollution from farmyards and roadways can be a significant impact on nutrients and sediment loss. And again, going back to our survey, we have shown that the survey indicated that significant amount of water is entering slurry storage, 20 to 40 litres per cow per week. So that is entering, again, it's inefficient use of slurry storage. So we develop actions around that, is gutters and downpipes in good working order, pipe water directly to soakways, divert clean water away from farmyards, restrict farm traffic to certain areas and parts of the yard, and reduce soil yards on farms. So the key actions then around what farmers need to do is based on the current grant supports, and the proposed exemption from planning. We would say to dairy farmers, or mostly dairy farmers, to survey the farm in terms of current slurry storage and point source. And where required, develop a plan to upgrade their infrastructure to reduce nutrient losses while also taking cognizance of labour efficiency. So land management is the final one. Many livestock farms are located on heavy soils and areas where high water quality, and you saw that in the east of the west of the Blackwater. There is a requirement to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus loss and sediment loss to water on those farms. So one of the big actions there is about fencing off these water courses in association with riparian margins that can protect diffuse loss of nutrients and sediment. And the other one in terms of is applying chemical fertiliser in terms of using buffer zones from any surface water required, and adopting riparian management. This is to protect the nutrient loss, especially overground flow in heavy soils, in terms of adopting riparian field margins, sediment traps, and farm roadways to slow the overground flow and to disrupt pollution pathways leading to significant nutrient loss and sediment overflow. And the last one, my time is up and I'm going to move through it fast, land management. This is work that we carried out last year looking at the role of cover crops in terms of tillage land. It showed that cover crops, where we compared fallow or natural regeneration with using a cover crop like leafy turnips or forage maize, they had the potential to take up 30 kilos of nitrogen per hectare. And when we looked at it in terms of losses, it reduced losses to 10 kilos versus 30 kilos, 20 kilos reduced loss by using cover crops in the farm. So advantages to reduce nitrogen leaching, improve soil structure and sowing date. And there's a big initiative in terms of the EIP, which I'm not going to go into detail here, in terms of increased use of cover crops on tillage land. And the actions in this, all livestock should be prevented from access to waterways, buffer zones, riparian margins, sediment traps should be incorporated to reduce overland flow to waterways, and overwinter green covers are essential in reducing nitrogen loss from. So I'm a small bit over time, so I'm going to finish in the summary. Water quality in Ireland is good, but there's significant opportunities, and I think that really with these actions, and it's actions for all farms, and that's the really important. All farms, and that's why based on a catchment approach and based on an all-farm approach is really important. The adoption of the 8 actions for change will require changes in farm practice while being integrated into the farm system, and that's really about a river catchment approach is preferable, gets people ownership, and it's really targeted mitigating then to the particular issue in those catchments. An intensive farm extension programme will require to assist farmers for the using. And the Better Farm for Water campaign will require strong collaboration, I said it at the start, with all of the other actions. We need all to work together. So I'll leave it with that, Chairperson.